wonder why. They're also mentioning in this letter to the judge why they find.
In the dim hush of a newsroom night when the cameras sleep, but the truth keeps breathing like a restless animal, I sit here, Las Hari from Coravanta, staring into this case that has stretched its fingers across Hollywood like a storm that refuses to settle. A case that started like a whisper between courtrooms and content creators, but has now erupted into a blazing fight about control, privacy, motherhood, betrayal, and the type of power that hides behind beautiful smiles and curated narratives. And tonight, I'm diving straight into the most chaotic blast we've seen in months. Blake Lively winning the motion that may hand her full access to every second of that controversial birthing footage. The footage that has been the heartbeat of this entire legal war. But the moment I saw the judge's order, my gut twisted, because this isn't just a win, it's an earthquake. A question that slices through ethics, dignity, and fairness. Because while the headlines right now scream, Blake Lively wins, she gets everything, the real story underneath is pulsing with tension, manipulation, deals we aren't supposed to notice, and two people who once trusted each other now clawing at the same narrative like it's their only oxygen left. And I'm going to tell you exactly what that feels like when you peel away the glossy Hollywood surface and look at the raw human mess beneath. It starts with a courtroom so silent you could hear the tension crack like a matchstick, Blake's lawyers sitting stiff, tight smiles pressed into their cheeks, while Justin Baldoni's team spread papers across their desks like soldiers preparing for war, because everyone knew this hearing was the one that might tilt the entire battlefield. This wasn't just about footage, it was about leverage, about who gets to shape the story, who walks out looking like the victim, who gets to cry on camera. First, who gets to say, "I was right," and whose career survives the fallout. And when the judge leaned forward, adjusting his glasses, the air thickened because the room understood he wasn't just signing a piece of paper. He was deciding the fate of reputations moving across millions of screens. Blake sat there, polished, steady, the same face Hollywood has fallen in love with for years. But there was something else this time, something sharper, almost metallic behind her eyes, like she had already rehearsed this moment in her head 1,000 times and knew how to exhale without trembling. And maybe that's what winning looks like when you've been at this level of fame for this long. It's not joy, it's control, it's the kind of calm that settles over someone who's already made peace with the fact that public sympathy is a currency and she intends to spend hers wisely. But across from her, Justin gripped the table with a tension that betrayed the exhaustion of someone who has watched the internet turn him into a villain overnight. And maybe he isn't perfect, maybe he's made mistakes, maybe he mishandled things, but in that moment he looked like a man who wasn't fighting for a legal victory anymore. He was fighting for the pieces of himself that still existed outside headlines, because once a narrative swallows you whole, it becomes almost impossible to claw your identity back from the digital wolves who have already decided what you are. And when the judge said it, when he said Blake has the right to obtain and review all birthing footage, I swear the courtroom didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. The silence hit like a punch because everyone knew this was the turning point, and Blake's lawyer straightened like she had just placed the final piece in a long-planned chess game, and Justin's team deflated in a way that only people who realize the slope just got much steeper can deflate. And I found myself wondering, is this justice, or is this strategy disguised as fairness? Because the truth is, that footage isn't just video. It's emotional ammunition, it's narrative gold, it's the kind of material that can be molded into sympathy or weaponized into humiliation depending on whose hands it falls into. And you don't have to be a Hollywood analyst to know that Blake's team understands storytelling better than most directors in the industry. Now let's talk about the ethics, because behind the headlines there's a bleeding question. Is it fair for someone to obtain all birthing footage when the situation around the recording is so contested? When one person claims manipulation, coercion, or power imbalance? When the other says it was all consensual and professional? When both sides insist they're the one telling the truth? It's messy, painfully messy, and I'm not here to protect anyone's image. I'm here to tell you what this means in the real world, in the court of public opinion, in the fallout that's coming. Because trust me, tonight's victory may feel like the start of Blake's redemption arc, but in reality it's the spark before a much bigger explosion. There's already talk online, whispers in group chats, threads on forums, people asking if Hollywood privilege played a role, if influence tipped the scales, if the judge felt the pressure of a celebrity machine that has been running at full speed for years. And let me tell you, I've watched enough cases to know that public skepticism doesn't come out of nowhere. It grows in the cracks left behind by decisions that look clean on paper but heavy in the heart. Meanwhile, inside Blake's camp, I can almost imagine the celebration, the relief, the shifting of gears as they prepare to rebuild her image, craft the next interviews, shape the narrative arc, because they know this footage can become the centerpiece of her defense, or maybe even her emotional confession. The one that will bring the public back to her side in a wave of sympathy that Hollywood agents dream of harnessing. But on Justin's side, this fear now, fear wrapped in frustration, fear wrapped in anger, because they know whatever Blake sees she can interpret, frame, spin, and share strategically, and they can't stop her unless another motion halts her, and that is unlikely, and I'm sitting here realizing that this is the part of the story where people stop pretending this is about justice and start admitting it's about survival. And there's another layer. Oh, there's always another layer, because Blake's team isn't stupid. They know the public is confused. They know the details are muddy. They know the legal filings contradict each other. They know TikTok has turned this case into a gladiator arena. And they know the only way to win hearts now is to show something raw, something intimate, something emotional, and nothing delivers vulnerability like birthing footage, which is why this one motion has more power than any statement either side has made in months. And I'm thinking about how Hollywood loves a comeback story, how audiences love a wounded hero, how PR teams know that tears on camera can flip public opinion faster than any court filing. And the moment the judge granted her full access, I realized Blake may have just secured her first real advantage in months, but at the same time I couldn't help but feel uneasy, because even if she's right, even if she's honest, even if she truly believes this footage clears her name, filming childbirth is one of the most intimate, vulnerable human experiences imaginable, and turning it into evidence, let alone a narrative tool, feels like crossing a line that we may not know how to redraw once this is over. But here we are, standing in the middle of a Hollywood battlefield where everyone's armor is cracking, everyone's motives look suspicious, everyone's truth is blurry, and everyone is praying the internet will pick them as the hero. And tonight Blake took a step forward, Justin took one back, and the rest of us are stuck asking the same question echoing across comment sections. Is this fair? Or is this just Hollywood winning again? They know whatever Blake sees she can interpret, frame, spin, and share strategically, and they can't stop her unless another motion halts her, and that is unlikely, and I'm sitting here realizing that this is the part of the story where people stop pretending this is about justice and start admitting it's about survival. And there's another layer. Oh, there's always another layer, because Blake's team isn't stupid. They know the public is confused. They know the details are muddy. They know the legal filings contradict each other. They know TikTok has turned this case into a gladiator arena, and they know the only way to win hearts now is to show something raw, something intimate, something emotional, and nothing delivers vulnerability like birthing footage, which is why this one motion has more power than any statement either side has made in months. And I'm thinking about how Hollywood loves a comeback story, how audiences love a wounded hero, how PR teams know that tears on camera can flip public opinion faster than any court filing. And the moment the judge granted her full access, I realized Blake may have just secured her first real advantage in months, but at the same time I couldn't help but feel uneasy, because even if she's right, even if she's honest, even if she truly believes this footage clears her name, filming childbirth is one of the most intimate, vulnerable human experiences imaginable, and turning it into evidence, let alone a narrative tool, feels like crossing a line that we may not know how to redraw once this is over. But here we are, standing in the middle of a Hollywood battlefield where everyone's armor is cracking, everyone's motives look suspicious, everyone's truth is blurry, and everyone is praying the internet will pick them as the hero. And tonight Blake took a step forward, Justin took one back, and the rest of us are stuck asking the same question echoing across comment sections. Is this fair? Or is this just Hollywood winning again? When the courtroom doors closed after that explosive motion hearing, it felt like the echoes were still vibrating in the walls, like the air itself wasn't ready to let go of what had just happened. And as I walked out with my notes pressed against my chest, I knew the real storm wasn't inside that building anymore. It was out here, across millions of screens, fans, critics, lawyers, strategists, PR handlers, industry insiders, and every person who has ever watched a celebrity narrative shift overnight. And the truth is, the moment Blake lively secured the right to obtain every frame of the birthing footage, the entire Hollywood chessboard rearranged itself. But what nobody seems ready for is the emotional bloodbath that's coming now, because Justin Baldoni's side isn't retreating, they're regrouping, And everything in their body language tells me they're preparing for a defense that doesn't rely on charm or likability anymore. It relies on exposing every uncomfortable truth Blake's team has tried to bury under red carpets and polished interviews. And as the evening settled over Los Angeles like a blanket of cold glass, I sat in my Corvanta studio, staring into the dim glow of my monitors, listening to whispers from both camps, whispers about what this footage actually contains, whispers about moments of panic, moments of pain, moments that were never meant for public eyes, and I couldn't help but ask myself something that has been scratching the back of my mind since this story exploded. What happens when the fight for justice becomes a fight to control a memory that was never meant to be weaponized? Because childbirth isn't a movie set, it isn't a scene you can reshoot, it isn't a performance. It's raw human life, and now it's sitting at the heart of a courtroom drama where every lawyer is tugging at it like a rope in a battle of pride and ego. And the more I think about it, the more it feels like both sides are losing pieces of themselves, even when they win motions. But the thing about Hollywood is, justice is never just justice. It's strategy, timing, influence, and reputation, and Blake's team knows this like oxygen. They know the public is confused, exhausted, overwhelmed with contradictory filings, TikTok breakdowns, leaked documents, emotional edits, and the constant flipping of public favor that feels like watching a pendulum stuck in a hurricane. And in a world like that, the person who controls the visuals controls the narrative, and the person who controls the narrative controls the truth in the eyes of millions. And that's why I could feel the shift the moment the judge gave her the footage, because Blake is not someone who moves blindly. She moves with intention, calculation, and the backing of a Hollywood empire that has survived scandals far darker than this one. Meanwhile, Justin's team is wrestling with a reality that is heavier than any headline. They're racing against time, desperate to file new motions, desperate to stop Blake from using this footage as a shield or a sword, desperate to build a defense that can withstand the emotional storm that's about to hit once she releases her side of the story to the world. And while his lawyers are working through legal arguments, Justin himself is falling into something deeper. A fear that once the footage is out, even privately, Blake can reinterpret it in ways that bend the narrative, shape the truth, and paint him in colors he may never scrub off again, because the internet doesn't forgive and it rarely corrects itself. But let's talk about Blake's internal world, because for all her poised smiles and carefully crafted elegance, something inside her has cracked too, and you can feel it in the way she avoids cameras outside the courthouse, the way she looks at the ground instead of into lenses, the way her voice trembles slightly in the snippets caught by reporters. This isn't just strategy, it's survival, and for someone who has spent years building herself as a symbol of strength, the shattering of that image has left her clinging to the footage the way a person clings to proof of their innocence when the world turns against them. Yet even then, even with her victory today, the whispers won't stop. Whispers about why she really wants the footage, whether it's about justice or revenge, whether there's something she's terrified we'll see, whether she's preparing for a documentary-style confession or a courtroom montage that flips sympathy in her favor. Because Hollywood has turned vulnerability into a marketing tool, and it's impossible now to tell where authenticity ends and strategy begins. And then there's the public, the unpredictable, emotional, easily influenced public whose voices roar louder than any lawyer's argument. Half of them are calling this decision a necessary step, while the other half are screaming unfair, dangerous, exploitative. And I've never seen such a divide since the Johnny and Amber trial, and trust me, once a case enters that level of cultural fracture, it stops being about evidence and becomes a war of perception. And as I watched Justin's attorney step out of the courthouse, his face tight with the frustration he tried to hide, I realized they know they're on the defensive now, scrambling to file emergency motions, analyzing every vulnerability in Blake's filings, trying to predict her next move. Because the real nightmare for them isn't the footage itself. It's what Blake might say about it once she views it. But the truth, the raw truth beneath all this chaos, is that no matter who wins the legal fight, something sacred has already been broken. Something tender has been dragged into the harsh light of public scrutiny. Something that should have stayed private has become evidence in a story that doesn't care about dignity or humanity, just visibility and control. And now, as I finish this part of the story and prepare for what comes next, I can feel the weight of this moment like a storm ready to split open, because the footage will change everything, and whether it brings truth or destruction, whether it heals or harms, whether it frees someone or damns someone, We are standing at the edge of a Hollywood battle that has swallowed careers bigger than this, and once it drops, nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever be the same again, and the world will finally see whether justice was served or whether this was another case of power bending the truth until it snapped. And with that, this chapter closes, the lights dim, the tension simmers, and I step back from the heat of the fire to tell you who I am, because that's how we end it here on Coravanta. I'm Zuriat Abbas Khan Lashari with Coravanta. Subscribe it,